I'm not an order taker. I'm a hiring strategist, right? And, they're going to lean on me for the intangibles that they can't see on that piece of paper.
Everybody in our recruiting firm laughed when I put out candidates from a supermarket. And when I watched all three of them get hired by private equity firms. You never know where talent can come from. It's our job to go uncover them. It's our job to go find them. And by the time I got to the third person, nobody was laughing anymore.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, today it is my pleasure to introduce Justin Brower and Jay Kondrup. Both are managing partners of Northbound Executive Search, located in New York, New York. My name is Vince Holt, and I'm the host of Talent Hunters. Combined, Jay and Justin have over 20 years recruiting in the finance and private equity world. Northbound Executive Search is an organization driven to bring excellence to both clients and candidates alike. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you for having us, Vince. Thank you.
So this first question, I want to ask both of you. And Jay, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and really what drove you to want to do recruiting.
They're $1 million question for every recruiter, right? I call myself a product of the recession. I was never meant to be a recruiter. I came out, I was in school for some form of business, and I happened to fall into accounting. I didn't want to go into accounting, but I had a professor who told me that you can take an accounting degree and go into anything else, but you can't take like a marketing or an economics degree and go into accounting. And I said, that is irrefutable logic. I hate that, and sign me up for accounting. And I had an offer coming out to do advisory work coming out in 2007, 2008. And in 2008, the entire financial world blew up. And I had to scratch and claw my way into a firm that I have kind of just grateful to have a job right then and there. Fast forward 2 years into that career, working 100 plus hours a week. It, buried in Excel, working until 2 a.m. Just, it was not for me. I knew my greatest skill set in life was the blessing of my mouth and my ability to talk to people. It's been, since I was a kid, just didn't realize it. And I had a family friend who was in sales. And, at that point in time as an accountant, I was at a firm called Grant Thornton. If you know Grant Thornton, now they're 6th largest accounting firm in the world. Back then they were number 5, but they were trying to be like the big 4. And I'm a big golfer. And the one thing they don't do is they don't sponsor, at the time, they didn't sponsor the PGA Tour. So I said, all right, let's do this. I cold the PGA Tour. And I said, let's put together a sponsorship deal, all while hiding the fact that I was an accountant and that I had no authority to sign off on anything. So I had the epiphany of, okay, I'm in the wrong profession, being more excited about doing this. So having a family friend who was in sales, he, took the money from sales, opened up his own Airbnb business before Airbnb was a thing, and very entrepreneurial. So I called back a recruiter that one day and I asked him, what do you have in sales? And he presented me with the idea of recruiting, to which I had an emphatic no to on the initial. And then, I learned more about the industry through there, found myself getting involved in the recruiting. Not long after that, sure, go into more details about that part, but that's how we ended up doing this.
Oh, wonderful story. How about yourself there, Justin?
Well, let's take it back. 18 years old, bartending in Hoboken, New Jersey, trying to pay for school, and had no clue what I wanted to do in life. Few guys used to come in and, I was the youngest bartender at 18, so I had the lunch shift, and a few guys used to come in and drink from 12:30 to the end of my shift at 6. Dressed well to the nines, Rolexed out. Obviously, they made a ton of money. What do you guys do? we're brokers on the commodities exchange. In fact, Justin, you belong down there with your personality. So fast forward, this guy, Hugh, I did not know other than just being a patron at the bar. His wife, turns out, she ran Citigroup's metals desk. So I had an opportunity to become an intern down on the trading floor as a freshman in college. I turned that internship into 14 years being on that trading floor, becoming a member of the exchange, trading metals during open outcry, the glory day events, right? Just straight chaos. I made a good amount of coin. Fast forward, electronic trading absolutely destroyed our edge. So here's a 30-year-old kid, made some good money in my 20s, not enough to retire, right? No one's going to take a knucklehead, that's been on the floor for 13 years and put him on a trade desk. What do I do now, right? So I went to Italy for 30 days, enjoyed myself. And when I came back, I said, what am I going to do now? So here I am, and I had a few buddies on the trading floor that had pivoted earlier into pharmaceutical sales, medical device sales, and recruiting. And, one thing I've learned in life is identify your two best qualities and learn how to monetize. And I always had game and I always had grit. Being the youngest of three boys, always got my ass beat, but I would never tap out, right? So they said, you should go into recruiting. And I interviewed across these three different industries and, I got offers at each, and recruiting just seemed like a natural transition. So I came in, reinvented myself at the age of 30, went from making hundreds of thousands to $56,000 on a base and working with 27-year-old kids. Like, what am I doing? And I hated it when I first started, and then things just clicked, and I just moved up really fast. And to your point, we're blessed to be in a position to make more than 99% of the people out there we speak to day in and day out. So that's my story on how I became a recruiter. It's just like most other folks, it happened, right? It's not like, I just hired a Princeton and a UPenn grad right out of school to be recruiters on my team. And I'm like, just the thought process is very different than Jay and I, who just stumbled on this, right?
And,
like most of us have to do.
Yeah, your story isn't different than anybody else out there. First of all, nobody in high school thinks of a career in recruiting because they don't want to go into the military. And so they don't understand what this profession truly is. And moreover, even if, let's say, somebody did want to be a recruiter because they know a recruiter, what classes do you take to become a recruiter in college? And so I love your story. I love your story. And I think more than anything, what you guys project is this happiness, even though there's this, impaling competition within yourselves, right? I can just imagine the culture in your office of the competition and the drive, but it's in fun. Outwardly. Inwardly, no, he's not going to beat me. And I love that. I really do. So, gentlemen, what cuts Northbound different than your competition in the financial world?
Well, I think I'm happy to jump right in. I think it's the quality of the product. You were just talking about the competition. Well, I have a phrase that I constantly use in this industry, and it's get better. I tell every one of my recruiters, get better on the phone, get better in terms of their knowledge, get better candidates. The best candidate wins the job. And our job is to go out there and find them. So what separates us is that we have this uncanny ability to not stop until we get the best candidate, the most applicable, the right dead center smack, what the client is asking for. That is our job. That's what they pay our fees for. So what they can expect of us is that we don't shovel candidates to them. We're not here to be a job board that just links candidates that applies to it that don't make sense. So we have a client roster that we've developed over the years that is a jaw-dropping who's who in the alternative space. And that is from years and years of hard work and reputation of sitting here trying to do right by people instead of taking the path of least resistance, taking shortcuts to try and earn a quick buck. We go out and we have candidates and clients we've known for years and always try and feed in the right advice. And that's how we built our brand, by doing that and having business come to us, having the luxury of turning business away if we don't align with values. So it's a wonderful luxury that we've had.
Well said. And just to piggyback off that, like one thing you have to understand, Vince, if we've experienced growth the organic way, right? The right way. We've stayed within our lane for 14 years, right? Never veering off, just focusing on becoming that, subject matter expert. And I think that mindset, to Jay's point, what separates us is, and I preach this to our teams out there, we're not recruiters, we're career counselors, right? And that's on the candidate side. And, on the flip side, to the clients out there that are our clients, I'm not an order taker. I'm a hiring strategist, right? And, they're going to lean on me for the intangibles that they can't see on that piece of paper, right? One's qualities. You can teach technicals, like you can't gauge one's qualities. Do they come from good stock? Are they articulate? The things you can't see on paper, we're very good at identifying, right? Understanding who our clients are. And more importantly, being direct and simplifying the process, right? To Jay's point, this is a kill and eat business, right? And if we're not in the business of wasting time, right? So we really are thorough in understanding our clients' needs. We know how to sell our clients, and we're subject matter experts when it comes to our space that we've just played in for a very long time.
I love that comment. We're not recruiters, because I relate to it. I'm a problem solver. I'm a solution solver. It's all about the results that both parties are happy, not just both parties. So I bleed what you guys are saying. And Justin, how do you handle a client situation where their expectations don't truly align with the market trends today?
Going back to what we just said, by not being an order taker and educating them on the market based on what we see, right? They're behind their desk doing what they do. I'm not going to ask you how to, how do you over leverage that loan, or, what you're doing? How do you restructure that product? That's your work, right? But I'm going to educate you on what I see in my world, from my seat, from my perspective. And I think that's how you get a unruly client on your side of the table, because they know I'm giving you what I see. And, I don't live in fantasy land. This is reality, and this is what the market says. So if you're looking for that unicorn that's one candidate doing 3 different jobs for this price point, they don't exist. And I'm good, but I can't walk on water. So I think taking that very direct approach and, educating them on what we see doing this day in and day out, not just for their business, but across the board. I think taking that, once again, just educating. I preach this all day long. Educate. Don't just tell someone, show them, give them live market, data. Educate them as to what we see, right? We just made 3 placements at this price point. What you're looking for does not exist. So maybe we're not, the best partner for you. So I think that's really what it comes down to, just shooting straight with people. And I think so many people in this world have it's just, you got to cut through the fluff, Vince. And really, I just feel like when you read through that and just get to the meat and potatoes, the world would be a better place.
So, Jay, what is your personal process for evaluating a cultural fit beyond the technical qualifications that are needed in this business?
For matching with the client or hiring for us?
Either.
Yeah. So for matching with a client, Justin said this word earlier. You look for the stock, right? In the sense, and you call this a little old school. I remember pre-COVID, I was meeting everybody face to face, and I was in a suit 5 days a week. Like, and recruiting is now shifted And this is something I'm still fighting day to day. We meet every candidate. I meet them via Zoom. I now try to be a little more modern, but there's an element. This is a relationship business. You get to know people. This is not, just, hi, what are you looking for and how much do you want to make? You're learning what people's, goals are in life, professionally and personally. And by understanding, where they're from, where they're looking to go, you're building a character profile for this person, and then aligning that, with clients. There's certain clients that, are looking for people just to kind of clock in, clock out, be a robot, and, not be the thought leader. And then there are clients that want the thought leader, and where do they come from? And there's certain, things, character traits that you can look for from, whether, somebody was a college athlete, whether somebody, worked as a bartender, in life, and, to truly understand where somebody is, in their upbringing. And, just coming from, we're native New Yorkers, but Justin's a kid from Bayonne. I'm from Long Island. Where you're from says a lot. And, we get to see where people are, where, what the routes people have taken in their careers, all the things from a decision tree that, where you went to school, where you worked, where you live now. Everything, tells a story about a person.
And on top of that, Jay, and I know he would agree to this. I think over time, when you establish your deep-seated relationships, whether it be with a client or a candidate, you really understand what makes them tick, and what their principal core values are, and what they look for in talent, or better yet, in a future employer, right? So I think, to Jay's point, really understanding your client or candidate, not just on the surface level, right, but really what makes them tick. That's, once again, it goes back to, and I preach, it's the why, right? It's the why you're doing something, and that educational piece, really understanding, what's really underneath the surface. And I think that's contributed to a lot of our success, personally and, collectively as a group. But that's really what, it comes down to, really understanding who your client base is, what historically has worked, what their core principles and values are, all while understanding what that candidate's long-term is, not what that next move does for you. Don't rest on those positives. Where shit could go wrong and where does this leave you in your career? This is what we're here to do, right? Educate you on those things, post this next move.
What's fun listening to you two talk is you both started out in different careers. And you both decided, for whatever be the reason, it wasn't where you wanted to continue going. And you got into this. Weren't comfortable at first, but you persevered through all the negativity that goes along, rejection and all that garbage that goes along, to get to where you are today. As you look towards the future of Northbound, what do you feel are the key priorities, not just for you, but for your organization, for growth and evolution? And that goes out to both of you.
I can start with this. I think there's going to be a massive change in recruiting over the next 5 to 20 years with AI technology. And there's going to be certain things that data is going to help you distinguish yourself. Data is probably my key point, but it's how you utilize data. AI, it's going to help do things like formatting resumes, writing meeting notes, and help writing job descriptions, resumes, and all of those administrative tasks that we've all hated as recruiters. The one thing AI will never be able to do is develop a relationship. It will never be able to influence. It will never be able to persuade somebody. If I need to persuade a client to meet a candidate that you feel strongly about, or to have a candidate meet a client that you feel strongly about. So it's understanding that some of the new school, maybe a little bit of the old school, which is the the successful recruiters in the future are going to be those who can establish relationships and leverage those, that network, all while being leveraging the new tools that are AI, data, which is what we're heading into. I firmly believe the lack of a better word, the bottom feeding type of recruiters are going to get automated and eliminated. And if a firm is looking to cut costs in the recruiting budget, which we're seeing already, and they may lose out on talent and not hire the best talent out there, because if that's, people say we hire top talent, well, put money where your mouth is. And, I've seen it already with some of, I don't want to use the word our client or ex-clients of ours who are, trying to take the cheaper route, hiring people who are easily available, who were fired from their previous role, and, only us with that inside knowledge can know that. It's going to be a interesting next few years as technology evolves in our business.
Yeah, well said. And just to add to that, it's like I was jotting down a few things. I think it's really harnessing the power of technology, right? Leveraging that tech, like you said, to move the firm forward, staying ahead of the curve. But I think it also comes down to understanding what your value add is to a client, right? In an ever-changing tech world. And I think the value we bring is what I just mentioned before, the things you can't see on paper, where technology can really very quickly make a match and decipher who's a personal match on paper. But what do we say, right? This is just a piece of paper. Is this piece of paper a real candidate? And that takes, the assessing one's qualities, understanding where we're going to bring the most value add to our clients, being, those eyes and ears that you can't necessarily just see physically, right? So I think that's really important, understanding what your value proposition is. And I think lastly, one thing we're doing as an organization, understanding the power of tech and how fast it moves is, I talked about staying within our lane for 14 years. Well, when you stay within that lane and you start to see blockers and technology changing that landscape, well, you better shift lanes or you're going to get left behind, right? So, diversifying our business model has been a big push, right? Where we were typically a direct hire firm, looking at that, the temporary consulting business and the upside that comes with that. We went out and purchased another company that, essentially staffs, clients alike and very different than our original business model, just to increase, our reach, right? And if you talk about technology in some of these certain fields like accounting and maybe even investment banking that will be automated, well, where's their edge out there and in the manufacturing space and, these blue collar jobs? As I said, we purchased Taylor Hudson that covers a lot of this day labor stuff. So, we're trying to get creative, just like everyone out there, to stay ahead of the curve, all while harnessing that power of technology just to, scale and take it to that next level.
For the benefit of our audience out there, because I can see where this conversation is going to be an inspiration to a lot of people. I started back in the 80s, and technology got flashed to us in the form of a fax machine. It's going to change the recruiting world. Didn't happen. Then the computers came. Going to change the recruiting world. Didn't happen. But you both alluded to this. The nucleus to your organization's success is ground in stone. That will never change. Never. You both talk about AI, technology, and all this. Where I think, my personal feeling is, too many people think technology, and AI is a great example, is an easier way to do this business. They don't understand that technology, AI in particular, is a tool to help you do what you do as the nucleus of this business. The building a relationship, you guys said it so beautifully. You can't build a relationship with a piece of paper.
None.
Resumes mean nothing to me. All it is a chronological order where this person's been.
That's it.
What they've accomplished is what's way more valuable. Being able to extract that out and give that to a hiring authority or whatever is truly the strength that you guys do, and you guys do it wonderfully.
Well said, Vince.
I'll give you an example of something you just said, and it's I don't mean to project this upon anybody else, but I'm one of the few recruiters that does not use LinkedIn the way it's used today.
Sorry to hear that.
I know. On you, it's a tool, you said, and it changed a lot of recruiting, but I don't send any messages through LinkedIn like most recruiters do. I use it as a tool to find connections and to find where people who know each other, what can I find as an angle in? And my way of recruiting has always been put me in touch with somebody, get me on the phone with them, and I will win them over. And I know my angle, my edge, but if you go to anybody right now on LinkedIn, and there's right now, all the messages have become automated, there's AI. So how do you distinguish yourself? Well, if you're not able to get on the phone and build a relationship,
We could talk offline on this, because I was given the gift to get, and should I get on the phone, I'm going to win. But the point is, you got to, just like a craftsman, does, you have to leverage every tool available to you to the best of your ability, right? And depending on the function or, the different roles that you support, like your world accountants, it's a different animal, right? Versus a front office or a middle office person in terms of the channels that you use to leverage. So I think there's the saying, there's many ways to skin a cat, but at the end of the day, Jay, I think the most glaring point you make, it all goes back to this, right? It all goes back to the phone. And, should you know how to dance, right? And, you have that grit, you're going to be successful.
Well, the point I was making was more with the tools and AI, how it changes.
Yeah, no, you've been on this LinkedIn kick for like this week. I know you have.
I love this New York challenge.
You should hear us offline.
No, I can relate.
Bigger like an old married couple.
I mean, you guys don't know anything about me, but Jay, I relate to you because LinkedIn, I'm not about an advertisement and I'm not about garbage, but you're both saying exactly the same thing. You go right back to the nucleus of what built this business. We can do all these other tools and use all our other tools, but the one thing that both of you protect is your prime time, which is valuable. How you use the tools outside of prime time, everybody's going to be different.
Yeah.
And there's value in every tool. The problem is too many of the young recruiters, and I say that gingerly because I'm way old, too many of the young recruiters think the answer is in technology, and it simply is a tool. You said it right, Justin, and you use it right, Jay. It's the phone. That's still the key. And unfortunately, there's so many people that want to email their presentations, text their presentations, communicate through LinkedIn, whatever. No, it's a tool to find out names. It's a tool to help make a connection. But the bottom line is connection. God, you guys are just so great at this.
I'm expecting you to give you a headset right when we're done right here. We can give you phone numbers to dial if you'd like. When we're done.
Did it for nearly 40 years. Done. But back to you. Jay, is there a specific success story you can tell us about of a candidate getting hired that really grabbed you?
There's actually quite a few. I go back into, I want to say, you never know where placements come from. Sometimes it's putting feelers out there. Few that come to mind, placing somebody 10 years after I met them. An initial meeting, playing the long game on that. But I'll never forget, I called into forgive me for, it's a supermarket, looking for accountants. And I saw somebody had an Ivy League background and worked at a supermarket chain. doing accounting, which is my world of whatever. And I was so fascinated by it. I started talking with him. Turns out he was hired through a private equity firm that owned them, and they were recruited to that PE firm. Well, go figure. I ended up representing him and the other two people in the organization as the firm was kind of going through bankruptcy, and everybody in our recruiting firm laughed when I put out candidates from a supermarket. And when I watched all three of them get hired by private equity firms in an instant, because what was beyond the paper. And that was very honoring in my career, which was, you never know where talent can come from. It's our job to go uncover them. It's our job to go find them. And sometimes it can come from a very unexpected place. And by the time I got to the third person, nobody was laughing anymore, because they saw I had earned fees on them, and there was nobody left at that firm for them to go try and pillage afterwards, because I already got everybody there. So
I love that story. I love that story. Justin, same question.
It's so hard to, pinpoint about it. We play so many people, and it's a good problem to have, but, and they're all success stories at the end of the day, because think about it. We get the profit off improving one's livelihood, right? There's not much out there that's better than that. But, one I think about that I'll always remember is when I first started in business, 3 months on the job, managing director position, everyone was going after this one guy over at Citibank. And, I happened to see, leveraging that LinkedIn tool we talk about, happened to see a common connect, a Bayonne connection. And, this guy happened to grow up, around my oldest brother's age, just in the subject line, Rob Brower. I wrote my brother's name in there. Right away, that got him. Hey, listen, when can you chat? Now, here's a guy that's been, I'm 43. He had to be in his, he's in his 50s now. So he was probably like a young man, family. He's been at the same firm for 14 years. And Vince, you've been doing this for 40 years. Someone that's been at that same firm, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? It's always going to be hard, to really, educate them as to why that next move's the best move for their career. And, I got this guy, Mark, who's a dear friend and dear client still to this day. But, I got him on the horn, and, sure enough, I presented him an opportunity, and he was fiercely against it. Now I'm positioned, well, listen, what's the downside in having a conversation, Mark? Go in there, wrap your arms around it, get the clarity you need, then come out and tell me you don't want to do it, right? But this space is so small for you not to want to meet the head of the business over there. You're crazy. He went in 7 rounds later, right? Here we are at the finish line. Hey, do you want this 100%? Yes. Should you get me this? I'm in. Okay, you get him that. Now it's real. Oh, wait, Joss, I don't know. And I'll never forget 3 months on a job with the owner of the firm. I'm sitting there and I'm laying into this guy just based on what he told me throughout the process, what he was looking for. And I'm like, Mark, you got to clip the wings and fly the coop, dude, right? Otherwise, you're going to just die over there. And sure enough, he heeded my advice. He went and, fast forward, the guy is a very, very big wig at one of the large investment banks today. And, we still talk about that because he said, without you pushing me, and getting me over that fear of the unknown, right? Taking that plunge, I wouldn't be where I am today. And you know what? That's something that's always resonating. And it goes back to the relationship business, because 15 years later, we're still tight, right? And, he still sends me a Christmas card every year because, I essentially paid for his kid's college when it's all said and done with the moves he's made and where he's become, where he's gone in his career. So that's one that just resonates. But there's so many unique stories. Which story is not great at the end of the day?
It's hard to sit here and pinpoint a few. And if there's, something you said, and we've all said it, how blessed this life is that, the one thing that's even more of a blessing that I know of is that, when I put my head on my pillow at night, I know that I am doing right by somebody's career. I'm setting themselves up, whether or not they know it, as another thing, to provide a more fruitful life for them and their families. And, having done this, and, you can look back with a little bit of wisdom now to see kind of like, the fruits of your labor from the earlier years, to see what everything is kind of grown into. And, then you've got people earning 7 figures in their lives because were able to impact them and give them career advice and get them. And now they're beyond set up for the rest of their life, retirement, generational wealth. It's a blessing knowing that you had a impact in that. Agreed.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy days, because I know you guys are banging and banging and banging all day, every day. But thank you very, very much. I've really enjoyed this.
Hey, Vince, it's been a pleasure. And listen, when you're ready to hang up those headphones, let me know. Maybe I'll take that seat.
All righty, gentlemen.